Welcome back to the deep dive. So I want to start today by asking you to picture digital disruption.
Okay.
When I say those words, where does your mind go? I'm guessing it's, a glass building in San Francisco, maybe.
Yeah, or some loft in Shoreditch. Developers in hoodies disrupting how we get a pizza or hail a cab. That's the standard image.
Exactly. We have this bias that real innovation belongs to the digital natives, the people who were like born in the cloud.
Mm-hmm.
But today, we are flipping that whole narrative completely upside down.
What?
We're looking at a company that's executing what is, well, arguably one of the most sophisticated Internet of Things strategies in the world.
But they didn't start in a garage in Palo Alto in 2010.
Not even close. They started in a hardware store in Zug, Switzerland in 1831.
1831. I mean, just think about that. We're talking about a company that's older than the light bulb, let alone the internet.
We're talking about the Bossard Group. And, on the surface, they're about as old economy as it gets. They sell fastening technology.
Right. Nuts, bolts, screws, rivets. The basic stuff that holds the physical world together.
But as I was reading through this case study on their pivot to smart factory logistics, it just hit me, they aren't really selling metal anymore.
No, they're selling the data behind the metal.
And it's a fascinating evolution. The source material we're looking at really digs into their transition, specifically under leaders like T. Binong, their VP of Sales and Marketing.
And the core question isn't how do we sell better screws? It's how does a traditional company survive when its main product becomes a commodity?
And that is such a scary place to be. If you're just selling, say, a standard M4 bolt, the company down the street can always sell it for a fraction of a cent less.
It's a race to the bottom.
Exactly. And to understand how Bossard escaped that race, we first have to understand the weird economics of their product. In the documents, they call them C parts.
C parts, yeah.
I highlighted that term. It sounds a little derogatory, doesn't it? Like you're talking about grade C meat or something.
It does sound harsh. But in manufacturing, it's just a value classification. You've got your A parts, which are high value, like a car engine.
You track those individually.
Of course. Then you have B parts in the middle. And then C parts. These are the low-value, super high-volume items. A single washer might cost a fraction of a penny.
But, and this is the absolute critical point from the research, just because they're low value doesn't mean they're low risk.
That's the paradox right there. A missing 5-cent nut will shut down a multi-million-dollar production line just as fast as a missing engine block. You just can't ship the product without it.
The case study even brings up aviation. If you use the wrong grade of rivet as C part, that's not just an annoyance.
It's a potential catastrophe. So you have a product that is incredibly cheap to buy, but incredibly expensive to get wrong.
And that tension is where Bossard found their entire business model. It's all built on something they call the Rule of 1585.
Ah, yes, the 1585 rule.
I spent a lot of time on this because it applies to so much more than just factories. It's like the iceberg theory of cost.
It really is. Yeah. The rule says that if you look at the total cost of ownership, the TCO of a fastener, the actual purchase price of the bolt itself, that's only 15% of the total cost.
Which is just mind-blowing. So if a factory spends $1 million on screws, they're only actually spending $150,000 on the metal.
Right.
So where's the other $850,000 going?
It's going into the hassle.
Right.
It's all the friction. Think about all the steps needed just to buy one box of bolts.
An engineer has to specify it.
A purchasing agent has to find a supplier, get a quote, negotiate, cut a purchase order.
Then someone has to pack it, a truck has to drive it, the receiving dock has to unload it, count it, sign for it.
Log into inventory, and then finance has to match the invoice to the PO and cut a check.
And every single one of those steps involves a person being paid a salary.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the administrative effort to buy a $50,000 engine is, roughly the same as the effort to buy a $5 box of washers.
Yeah.
The paperwork doesn't care.
So for these C parts, the process cost is just disproportionately huge.
So Bossard looks at this whole mess and realizes, if we walk into a client and say, hey, we can sell you this screw for 10% less, we're just fighting over that tiny 15%.
So you're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
You're optimizing the wrong end of the equation. Bossard figured out the real value, the real money, was in attacking that 85%.
Right.
If they could make the logistics totally invisible, if they could make the screws just appear where they're needed Without anyone lifting a finger, they'd save the client way more than a discount ever could.
And this is the whole foundation of their proven productivity concept. But, talking about it was one thing, doing it is another.
This is where the tech comes in.
Yeah, and what surprised me is that they started building the solution for this way back in the 1990s. I mean, they were doing IoT before we even had a name for it.
It's a classic case of accidental tech.
Yeah.
They didn't set out to be a software company. They were just trying to fix the refill problem,
And their breakthrough was something called the smart bin.
which visually is exactly what it sounds like. It's a plastic bin.
A plastic bin on a scale. A weight sensor.
It's so simple. It's brilliant. You know how much one screw weighs? You know how much the empty bin weighs? So this system just constantly monitors the stock level by weight.
Right. And here's the magic bit. When the weight drops below a certain point, say 30% full,
The system automatically triggers a reorder. It just sends a signal straight to Bossard's servers.
no human involved, no one walking around with a clipboard, no one forgetting to write it down.
No one panic ordering because they thought they were low but weren't. It kills the stockout panic, which is the cardinal sin, but it also kills the overstock waste.
And the sources detail how this tech just kept evolving because you can't put everything in a bin on a shelf.
Of course, sometimes parts are right on the assembly line or in these huge pallets,
So that's where they brought in the smart label.
right, which is a digital tag you attach right at the point of use. Where the worker is actually standing, there is a button. When the worker grabs the last bag of bolts, they just press the button.
Boom. Order placed.
And by 2014, they rolled out Smart Bin Flex.
I'm guessing that's the wireless part.
Yes. The early systems needed to be wired in. Flex is totally wireless, totally mobile. You can reconfigure your factory floor, move the bins, and the data just keeps flowing.
And all of this, the scales, the buttons, the apps, it all feeds into one central platform they call ARIMS.
Their rims. That's the brain.
The central nervous system of the factory floor.
You could think of it that way. It integrates all this data. But what's really interesting is that ARIMS isn't just for Bossard parts. The system got so robust that clients started asking, hey, can we use your scales to manage these other parts that you don't even sell to us?
That is the holy grail for a supplier, isn't it? When your software becomes the operating system for your client's entire inventory.
It creates incredible stickiness. You become a partner, not just a vendor.
Yeah.
It's a computer system monitoring physical processes and making decentralized decisions.
Which is the textbook definition of Industry 4.0.
It is.
So it all sounds like a perfect success story. But as we know from the case study around 2016, Bossard, well, they sort of hit a wall. Or maybe hit a wall is too strong.
They faced a serious strategic dilemma. They fell into the commoditization trap.
Right. Innovation has a half-life. The smart bin was revolutionary in 1998. By 2016, competitors had copied it.
That whole concept of vendor-managed inventory, or VMI, it wasn't special anymore. It was just the cost of doing business.
And that's a dangerous moment. If your key differentiator becomes the industry standard, you're right back to fighting over price.
You're back to the 15%. So Bin Ong and the leadership team, they knew they had to pivot again. They had to stop selling products with free logistics and start selling logistics as a service.
This is the big shift to smart factory logistics. And I want to pause here for a second because the case study highlights something that I think gets overlooked in these tech stories: the human cost of a pivot.
Oh, absolutely.
This wasn't just the software update for them. This was a cultural crisis for their sales team.
Massively. Think about the psychology of a typical industrial salesperson. For 20, 30 years, their job has been very, very clear.
You have a catalog, you have a price list.
You take the purchasing agent out to lunch. You haggle over volume discounts. Your entire relationship is built on, I can get you this bolt for cheaper. You're a trader. You move metal.
Exactly. Now, suddenly, headquarters is telling you, stop talking about bolts. In fact, stop talking to the purchasing agent entirely.
And why stop talking to the purchasing agent?
Well, because the purchasing agent usually doesn't care about the 85%. Their bonus is tied to reducing the unit price of the goods.
Right. So if you walk in and say, I can save you $1 million in administration, but my bolt cost a fraction of a penny more to cover the service.
The purchasing agent shows you the door. It's not their budget.
So the sales team had to learn a completely new language. They had to go over the buyer's head and talk to the COO, the factory manager, the CFO.
And they had to start talking about total cost of ownership and process efficiency and return on investment. That's not selling hardware.
That's consulting. It's a totally different skill set.
The case study mentions Bin Ong had to personally tour all these subsidiaries to drive the message home. They introduced 3 service tiers: entry, advanced, and premium.
They basically started charging a subscription fee for the logistics expertise.
Which sounds insane. It's a huge risk. Telling a customer, you have to pay us a monthly fee just for the privilege of buying our screws.
But it worked. And the reason it worked brings us right back to that one key asset, the data.
Datability. That's the term Bossard coined for it. It sounds a little bit like a buzzword.
It does, but the concept is solid. Because they have sensors on the line, they often know more about what's happening in the factory than the factory manager does.
That's the irony, isn't it? A big company, say a John Deere or a Tesla, they know their big sales targets. We want to build 5,000 units this quarter.
But translating that big goal down into how many M4 washers will we need on Tuesday the 14th, that is an incredibly difficult math problem.
Because there are thousands of different parts, Cisco says.
Thousands. And human behavior is messy. People drop screws, they lose them. So factories usually just guess. They overorder to be safe, which ties up millions in cash just sitting on shelves.
But Bossard isn't guessing. They're watching the bins get lighter in real time.
And they turned that visibility into a product. The notes list 5 specific ways they monetize this data, and it's worth walking through them.
Okay, so the first is strategic forecasting.
Right, because they see consumption patterns over time, they can tell a client, based on last year, here's exactly what you'll need next quarter. It helps the client plan their budget.
Then there's strategic network planning. This is about the trucks, right?
It's logistics efficiency. If you know exactly when bins will empty, you can consolidate shipments. Instead of 5 half-empty vans a week, you send 1 full truck.
Saves fuel, saves receiving time, lowers the carbon footprint.
Okay.
Third is operational capacity planning.
That's for the warehouse staff. If you know a big shipment is arriving at 2:80 p.m. on Tuesday, you can schedule your team accordingly. No one is standing around waiting. No one gets overwhelmed.
Number 4 is my favorite because it feels the most like high-end consulting. It's product portfolio optimization.
This is the tailspin problem. Bossard's data can show a client, hey, we noticed you're buying 15 different types of screws that are almost identical. You're ordering tiny, expensive batches of each.
And they can say, why don't we standardize on just one screw that does the job for all 15 applications?
Exactly. It cleans up their whole inventory mess. And finally, number 5 is market intelligence.
Because they aggregate all this data across thousands of factories, they can spot macroeconomic trends.
They can see things before almost anyone else. They can say, hey, we're seeing a slowdown in the global agricultural sector. You might want to adjust your plans.
So they've successfully pivoted. They're a tech-enabled logistics partner. But the case study throws in a wild card near the end, a potential growth area that seems, well, completely out of left field.
The disruption option.
Hospitals.
Hospitals.
I have to admit, when I first read that, I did a double take. We're talking about a company that sells industrial hardware. Why on earth would a hospital want a bolt supplier anywhere near their operation?
It seems like a massive leap, right? But if you strip away the product for a second and just look at the process, hospitals are just chaotic logistics environments.
I can imagine. High stress, life or death urgency.
And think about the C parts of a hospital. Syringes, needles, bandages, gloves, catheters. All low-value items individually.
But you go through thousands of them. And just like in the factory, if you run out...
It's not a production stop. It's a patient safety issue. If a surgeon calls for a specific clamp or suture, and it is not there, that is a critical failure.
So the stakes are even higher, and I'm guessing the 1585 rule applies here too.
Oh, even more aggressively. Think about the labor cost. Who is usually managing all these supplies?
Nurses.
Often, yes. Highly trained, highly paid medical professionals. And every minute a nurse spends counting boxes of gloves in a supply closet is a minute they are not spending with a patient.
That is a massive waste of resources, paying a medical professional to do inventory clerk work.
Exactly. So Bossard's pitch is simple. We have a system that automates replenishment. The scale doesn't care if it's weighing screws or syringes. Let us automate your supply closet so your nurses can go back to nursing.
The logic is just undeniable. The logistics problem is identical.
And the market potential is staggering. The case study we read cited McKinsey's statistics estimating that this kind of IoT inventory optimization could save hospitals globally between $1 and $4 billion.
A billion.
With a B. And the total value creation could be up to $342 billion a year.
Those numbers are just astronomical. But surely there's a huge branding challenge there. I mean, if I'm a hospital administrator, do I really want to hire the industrial fastening technology company to manage my sterile surgical tools?
And that is the billion-dollar hurdle. It's an identity crisis. Can a company known for industrial grime pivot to the sterile world of healthcare? They have to convince the market that their core competency isn't metal, it's movement, it's logistics.
It's a fascinating test of how far a core competency can stretch. But I suppose if you're a public hospital under huge budget cuts, you might not care about the logo on the bin.
You just care that the syringes are there when you need them and you've saved 20%. Efficiency usually wins in the end.
And this brings us back to the bigger picture of what Bossard represents. We spend so much time talking about, AI writing poetry or robots doing backflips. But the real revolution of Industry 4.0 is happening in the boring stuff.
It's the invisible infrastructure. It's using sensors and data to take all the friction out of the mundane tasks. The inventory closet,
Yeah.
the supply chain, the receiving dock.
And Bossard proves that you don't need to be a digital native startup to lead a digital transformation.
You just need to deeply understand where the real pain points are for your customer. And you have to be willing to disrupt your own business model to fix them.
Even if it means telling your sales team to stop selling the one thing they've sold for 180 years, I love that. It's a masterclass in adaptability.
It really is.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, the listener, with a bit of a thought experiment.
Let's hear it.
We spent a lot of time on that rule of 15-85 today. The idea that 85% of the cost of something is the hassle, not the item itself.
It's a universal truth in business.
It really is. So take a look at your own business, or even just your own household. What is your C part? What is that cheap, annoying little thing that consumes a disproportionate amount of your time and energy?
Identify the hassle.
Exactly. Find the thing that costs 15% to buy but 85% to manage, and then ask yourself, how could a little bit of data or just a better system make that 85% disappear?
Solve the 85% and you unlock all the value.
That's it for today's deep dive into the Bossard Group, a screw company that became a tech giant. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.